you could spend your whole life trying to get there, and you might get there, that dream. And, you might get there in a few years if you're very good at it. You might get, but what happens when you get there? You've got your million and you buy things you want, and you're like, and you just, but it's the same you. When you've got to the top of the mountain, it's the same you.
Hello, you beautiful bluebirds, and welcome back to another episode of Deja Blue. Unfortunately, I can't be with this man in person for this podcast, even though we'll probably be connecting soon when I go back to England for my little Christmas trip. However, Richard Rudd has been a guest on Deja Blue multiple times. He has chatted with us on episode number 27 with a deep dive with the founder of the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd. That was the title of it. And then the other episode that we did was episode 38, Death, Triggers, and the Gene Keys with Richard Rudd. So if you're not familiar with the Gene Keys, if you don't know who this man is, please go back to those previous episodes and just check out the wisdom that was shared regarding the context of the Gene Keys and what it is that this man has birthed into the world through his being and supported so many people around the planet, and massively including myself, to activate into the highest potential of the gift that we've been given within our DNA through the technology of the Gene Keys. We have him again as a guest on the Deja Blue podcast to be talking all things prosperity, exploring all of the edges of prosperity, and going into topics that I'm sitting front row with the popcorn myself in excitement to hear his wisdom and to share with all of you. So to introduce Mr. Richard Rudd, it is truly an honor every single time that you come on the podcast, not only as being one of my mentors and my guides, but also as like soul fam and, someone that I can actually call a friend, which is just such a deep honor. So Richard, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Blue. It's wonderful. I love chatting to you.
We can chat. There really doesn't feel like there's any end to the places that we can go in our conversation. And I feel like we're really, truly, even, 3 episodes in, minutely just scratching the surface of the magic and the mysticism of what life has to offer. So this is just the start, it feels like. And I'm so blessed to be able to be the bridge between you and the Bluebird community, to be able to hear your wisdom through their ears.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk today all about exploring the edges of prosperity. And like I said before in the intro, if you're not familiar with the Gene Keys, then my invitation for you is to go back and listen to those other episodes, because we're not going to dive too deeply into what the Gene Keys is during this episode, but we are going to talk about how the Gene Keys can be applied into these specific realms and spheres of prosperity, and how we can actually start renegotiating our relationship with what prosperity actually means on an energetic level, and how we can actually inner engineer our external experience of how we relate to prosperity and how we can allow it to start flowing into our lives. So Richard, very organized manner, delivered me an email that had a few topics that were alive for him and what was coming through for him in this moment. And these are topics that are right on the tip of my tongue that I feel like are really important to be talked about. So I want to start off by, I guess, handing you the baton around healing trauma and money. And how do you believe trauma and money go hand in hand, and how it still shows up for us today in our everyday lives?
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, those 2 words are just so, people I haven't heard that many people connect them, but they surely are deeply connected, aren't they? And in the work that I do with the Gene Keys, and I think on one of our last things, we talked about the Venus sequence, which is a work I do that's with the Gene Keys that's very much about healing childhood trauma patterns inside us. And the Gene Keys are kind of the algorithms of our awakening process. And so part of that is healing deep traumas inside us. And, we kind of, a mistake we often make around prosperity, and I use the word kind of carefully, because I don't use the word wealth. Like, for example, in fact, I often put those two words separate. And I say, look, when I talk about wealth, I see it as something that's about accumulation. So you accumulate wealth, and as you accumulate it, it makes your life heavier, because accumulation does that, and it also can make your life complicated, and it can actually, even though wealth can lead to open many doors, it doesn't necessarily lead to fulfillment. In fact, it rarely does lead to fulfillment. And if you know any very rich people, you'll probably know that by now. And the most fulfilled people I've ever met are actually people that usually have very little money. But that's not always the case. But it's just interesting to kind of open up that dialogue, I think. And so prosperity, I see as is very different. It's about flow. It's not about accumulation. It's about flow. So and prosperity also can't be compartmentalized in your life. So wealth is about, it might be about material success, let's say. Prosperity has to be of your relationships. It has to reach into your health. It has to reach into your family life. It has to reach everywhere in your life. In order for you to truly prosper, everything's got to be connected and flowing. Otherwise, you'll never find that fulfillment, that true fulfillment. You might find success, but you probably won't find fulfillment without prosperity. So without that flow of, energy moving between all the areas, especially good fortune, moving all the areas in your life and knitting them together. That's what I mean. I wanted to get that clear at the beginning, Blue. That's what I mean by prosperity. And I want to unpack it a bit. Because when we talk about, wealth and money and things, that's where trauma often lies, because it's like in the moment, even if you're a really very spiritual person and you're very kind of evolved and all that, often when the subject of money comes up and there's a bit of a crisis or a question mark, that brings up a lot of hidden stuff, especially in spiritual people, or people who are like, think they were doing well, but then the moment that there's a kind of money issue, it brings things up quickly. So it's very deep embedded in us, the fear of like advantage of injustice, financial injustices, the whole, all the guilt that lies around money, all the shame that lies around money, the self-worth issues, all of that, it's like all interconnected. So in a way, the subject isn't really about money. The subject really is about how do we heal that trauma so it doesn't kind of attach itself to anywhere in our life, not just money, and but it's not even attaching itself to like us, our idea of being successful, or in life. So it's about finding freedom, and that's what this teaching is that I'm involved in. This kind of yes, because I'm hotting up, as you know, for doing a big teaching called the Pearl, and it's all about what does it mean to prosper truly, and how do we make that happen. So trauma and money are intricately intertwined. I was having a conversation just yesterday with someone, and we were talking about how relationships sometimes end, and divorces end, and then money suddenly comes up. And two people who had respected each other and loved each other suddenly get lawyers involved, and it suddenly turns into something completely different. And it's sort of, wow, that brings up those fear patterns and those anger patterns so fast. And what I was saying is, often it's kind of interesting that we talk about money and charge. We talk about charging money, and actually money carries a charge. So the money that comes into your life or it goes out of your life, what kind of charge does it have? So if you kind of end up in that wrangle with that person, and you get some money and they get, or you get their money, or they, there's a kind of wrangle, then that money suddenly has an energy attached to it. And you actually might not want that money. So it's like I was saying to this person, I said, you actually might want to let that person have the money, because even if you get the money, you say, yeah, I'm going to get my lawyer, I'm going to drag them through the courts, and I'm going to fight them, and I deserve that. Then that money is covered in resentment. It's crawling with an energy, and that energy ties you to that person. And often people don't realize the level of these things, the ties and the karmic links that kind of move between us, but especially they get attached to money and issues of money. So we have to launder it, literally. So but energetically. So there's times where we have to sort of realize that this whole theme of how we make money, how we earn money, how we get money, give money, how we pay for money, how we value money, is actually much deeper inside us than most people realize. It's linked to our energetics. It's linked to our emotional body. It's linked to deep traumas that are kind of lying latent within us. And we play them out in our relationships, and we play them out in our businesses, and they manifest in front of us, and they manifest in order that we can heal them. And so, a difficult situation in a business or anything that involves money, might be lack of money, might be, whatever it is, a wrangle with an ancestor, or a family member, or a will, or some kind of legality. It's got a teaching embedded in it. It's got a spiritual teaching embedded in it. And if we can unpack what that teaching really is for us, it can lead us to freedom. And we can actually free a part of our spirit. We can free an old wound pattern, an old trauma. And once we let go of that trauma, because it will involve letting go of some form. It certainly might not involve letting go of the money. It might, or it might not. It might involve standing up for the money and going, no, but you have to figure out what that is, what it is that you're being called to stand up for or let go of, some place that you're going to have to stretch your spirit. But when you pass the test, then you will feel free. And that pattern will never reemerge in your life again. Never. It can't, because you've transformed it. So money is just like anything in life. It's just a symbol that's echoing something that's embedded inside us. And what I try and show people with the Gene Keys is that every shadow contains a gift. So every difficult situation, every kind of struggle that we meet in life has embedded in it an incredible gift. But we have to kind of contemplate and go on an inner journey to really unpack, well, what is that for me? And how am I going to unlock the true treasure, the true prosperity that's embedded in these tangles that come our way in life. So yeah, I guess that starts the conversation a bit around trauma. It's a deep one, and it each person has to find their way with that question.
It's so confirmative hearing you speak about money and the very subtle yet massively impactful energetics of what was sacrificed to create that money, or what is the charge behind it, and is there conflict that has created that, or have you taking it from somebody, or like it holds a specific energy, which then for me it feels like the fertile, like the soil that's put in the bank account that like either lets other stuff grow, or it's just not fertile soil. And I remember the first time I ever got paid for doing something that was in my highest excitement, that I was in service, I was helping people heal, I was creating a safe space for people to feel. And then I got handed a couple $100 in cash, and she handed it to me. And I remember it felt warm. It felt like home. It felt true. It felt it felt like it was created because of a win-win-win. Everybody in the interchange was winning. Everybody was receiving something from the experience. And the frequency of the money felt different. And I remember making a declaration in that moment that was, my commitment from this point forward is to create money from a win-win-win scenario only. And allow everything that flows into my savings and everything that flows through me and out into, small businesses or people that I believe in, is been created from a win-win-win. And it sets myself up on my bank account to create a very fertile environment for more prosperity to flow through. And like I talked to you before we started filming, as opposed to it being a reservoir, allowing it to be a river, because, even stagnant water becomes toxic. So and I read that in the Gene Keys, the difference between wealth and prosperity. And wealth is actually still based off of fear. It's an accumulation that creates heaviness, as opposed to prosperity, which is a freedom of flowing and always having enough, and to be able to be, in your service to the world. So it's something that has, the Gene Keys, this specific topic has completely renegotiated my relationship with financial prosperity, and how to share it in a bigger way. So I think this is a really great starting point with healing trauma and money, and recognizing that trauma and money definitely go hand in hand. This is a huge topic across the planet, whether you've got millions of dollars or you've got nothing in your bank account. It's not about the money, it's the trauma that's sitting behind it. And so I would love for you to share a little bit more about the difference between prosperity and success, because I think that seems to be like merged together, and we are conditioned as a collective to say, hey, to be a successful person means you're making a lot of money. However, what would you say into prosperity without success?
Yeah, well, I kind of coined that as a riff. I've been riffing off that because it was a little kind of phrase that I thought I'd chuck out there and see who came in to discuss it. And I wanted to be a bit provocative: prosperity without success. I mean, before I do that, I just want to say that it's it's like I kind of I look at it as like financial thermodynamics, right? Right. So there are laws in the universe, right? And there's perceived laws, and then there's real laws, deep laws. One of the perceived laws of physicists is the law of entropy and disorder. And it's really interesting because, when you apply entropy to life, it's about the loss of energy. It's about the depletion of resources. It's about lack. It's about energy that dissipates away. And so far, the physicists haven't quite understood, they haven't managed to resolve the kind of paradox of entropy. Anyway, I coined a term. Well, I didn't coin it. It's already out there, but I use it a lot, and I use the word syntropy. And syntropy is the sort of opposite of entropy. It's about constant recycling of energy, which is where the flow comes in. This is why it's thermodynamics, because if you look into any living system, all systems are actually interconnected. So nature is a system of systems, and every part of nature is interconnected. So if we damage one part of nature, it actually damages the whole web of life. We know that now. We know it. We see it all the time around us, because we're doing it all the time. And we can see systems collapsing and kind of trying to rebalance all the time. And so it's the same inside us, though. We're interconnected as well. So part of that flow is if once you look out there in nature, one thing nature never really does is it never stockpiles a vast amount of something somewhere. Because another part of nature comes in and consumes it and then runs off, and then connects that and then shares that with something else, which gets shared and eaten by something else and digested by something else. So everything is sharing and digesting and eating and moving, from the tiniest microscopic organisms all the way up to the vast systems, so that it's these systems within systems. And so syntropy is this absolute understanding that everything's interconnected, and that if it is that kind of old chestnut of give and you shall receive. Jesus said, give and you shall receive. And everyone was like, wow, that's so deep. But so I just have to give and then I get back. But there's this kind of proviso, which is you kind of have to give selflessly. I mean, if you just give strategically, it doesn't generate the syntropy, because the syntropy is energetic. You've got to give from your heart. So that's why you have to have healed the trauma, because if you haven't healed the trauma in your heart, you don't have the feeling of giving. You can't feel the love, so you have to heal. But it's also a way of kind of feeling the love. So when I had a lovely story from great spiritual teacher Maharaji. I don't know if I told you this one before, but he was this guy up in the mountains in India, and he was Ramdas's teacher, and anyway, loads of people would come to him and they would all bow down and do the whole thing with and he was this kind of weird, wonderful man, miracle man, and they'd kind of give him stuff, and he was always giving out lots of food, and he was doing real syntropy. Actually, he was just feeding millions of people, nourishing them all the time, nourishing them spiritually, nourishing them through food, nourishing them through, he would always, if he was given something, he would give it immediately to someone else. And it was this constant syntropy flow of exchange. And that's what prosperity really is. It's like, as soon as you have something beautiful, you have to you receive something beautiful. Shit, I've got to give something beautiful to someone. Otherwise, this is going to accumulate. I have this friend, I'm digressing, but I have this friend, and we have this gifting thing with each other. We try and out-gift each other all the time. He gives me something really precious, and I go, shit, what am I going to give? I got to give him something that's even more precious. Not in terms of monetary value, but something that means a lot to me. And so I'll give him something that means a lot to me. And then he'll go, oh my God. And every time we meet, every kind of once a year or something, we do this. We have this game, and it's syntropy in action. It generates such life force that anyway. So Maharaji is in the mountains, and there's everyone there. There's these people in the queue, and they're giving him fruits, and some people are putting money into a jar and things. And there's this woman there who is just absolutely destitute. There's loads of poor people there, but there's one woman, and she's just this little Indian woman, and you can just tell from the look of her, she has nothing. She's a very, very poor woman, and she's got in rags. She's a beggar. But she comes up, and she's sitting at the back, and she works her way up to the front where he is, and she's bowing to him, and she takes from her sari a 1 rupee note, a very kind of torn old note, and she just pops it in the jar and bows to him like that. And then he kind of blesses her, and she's gone. And then he says to one of his disciples, take that note, take it out. And so he takes the note. So you just keep it for the moment. And then later, a very wealthy man comes, and he's a very unhappy man. And Maharaji says, look, I'm going to give you this. And he gives him the 1 rupee note from this woman. He said, this has so many blessings in it. And he tells him the story of this poor woman. For her, this was like, food for her or her family or whatever. It was a lot of money for her, 1 rupee. You could tell. And it was like the seedy old note. He said, don't you ever, ever let go of that note. It will bring you countless blessings in your life. And he kept it ever since. He kept this note very carefully in a little leather pouch, and it brought him a lot of good fortune. And he managed, and his life transformed. He started to kind of give away more of his money. He became a philanthropist. He became much happier. He became lighter. He became jubilant. This one little kind of moment of syntropy in the system of life, and how it can change our whole, and you don't know what blessings it brought to her, and at what level, because we don't see where it comes back. That's the whole thing about the system. It's beyond our understanding. Given you shall receive is a massive piece of wisdom. So anyway, I digressed, but I kind of didn't as well. So it does show you the difference between material success in the West, material success is kind of a cult. It's like a cult. And like, I'm amazed. Like, there's all these, I go on this app Clubhouse, which I love, and on Clubhouse are all these people giving advice from all walks of life and sharing with each other. And one of the most common and popular ones are the sort of millionaires clubs. So you have these millionaires and they all come on, and the rooms are always full of like hundreds of people listening, like, how did you do it? How did you do it? And they're giving out their secrets of, this is the strategy, I mean, it's like it's an old cult, right? There's always been these books that like, this is how I do it. And there's people tour all year going around the world. This is how you make your million. This is how you make this strategy. You do this, you sell it like that. You say this, and they have all these strategies. And there's all these people trying to get to where those people are. And you just think about this, like, you could spend your whole life trying to get there, and you might get there, that dream. And, you might get there in a few years if you're very good at it. You might but what happens when you get there? You've got your million and you buy things you want, and you're like, and it's the same you. When you've got to the top of the mountain, it's the same you. And except actually you're like, now you've got more to distract you, but you've finished the climbing of the mountain, and you're like, well, what do I do now? I guess I better go up to the next mountain top, and the next is, you should just try and get more. And it becomes this addiction because you don't want to kind of accept that it isn't fulfilling. It hasn't fulfilled you. And so I kind of want everyone, I'm not against making money at all, but I want people to ask themselves the question deeply. One question: how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? That's the question. If you can ask that question and you can live the answer, then you'll find fulfillment. And it might come in the weirdest way. But if you don't ask that question, then you're distracting yourself somewhere. And you may learn, it may be incredibly valuable. Also on Clubhouse are a lot of people I've met who have their stories. They're in the more spiritual circles. They're like, well, I was a millionaire, and then I realized it wasn't, now I'm a spiritual teacher. Lots of them as well. They're like, I gave it away because it wasn't making me happy. I kept some because it's nice to have some comforts, and that's true. And so there's, it doesn't, success isn't always the right thing. It should, it's one of my other riffs that I sent you, like, what was it? Making money by mistake. Sorry if I jumped in. Because if you're following that Syntropy act, that act that comes from the core of your being, that's coming from, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? You're like that woman giving that 1 rupee note. You are giving selflessly back to the whole. And you're giving, as much as you can afford, and that was an extreme circumstance because she was, there was a very special person there that she revered. But that is a symbolic act. We can help others in all kinds of ways. And even the smallest ways are those acts of kindness actually generate ripples in the fabric of space-time that come back to us in the most extraordinary ways. And this is Syntropy in action. This is the law of thermodynamics. You can't see across. It's like, the teaching I'm involved with at the moment is called the pearl. And the pearl is a symbol. One of its symbols is the black pearl, which is like the black hole. And the thing about black holes is that all the energy that physicists try and understand that goes into the black hole, and then they've noticed that black holes, start to collapse after a period of time, and will eventually, they predict they will eventually fizzle away into nothing. But then they're like, well, what happens to all the energy and the information that goes into them? That can't be lost, because the law of quantum says you can't lose information, right? And so now there's a sort of they sort of fiddled around with the formulas, and then they're thinking like, maybe we'll resolve this somehow, and they tried things. But then there's a now group of people saying, well, it must go through a wormhole, and come out in another dimension. And that is actually syntropy. Syntropy is you can't see the systems that are attached, because you can only see inside your own system. And thought is actually a system. Mathematics is a system. But you can't. Logic is a system, but there are systems beyond logic. And so you can only get so far within one system. And all these laws of physics are based on those laws of thermodynamics. They all say within a system, energy behaves like this. And first time I read that, I was like, what do you mean within a system? It's like, about what happens outside the system? So it's like, syntropy is everywhere. And it's a kind of abundance that's in our hearts. It flows, simple. It flows from our heart outwards. And that's, so we don't see what's down the wormhole on the other side, but it connects us to all of life and good fortune. So if you're following the thing that's absolutely, from your heart, you will make money by mistake, because in a way, money will be a byproduct, and the right amount of money as well. Now, I'm going on, and I'm sorry, I'm just like on a roll. But
I love it.
Till I take a breath.
I'm over here like, go.
I'm on Syntropy. I'm like fired up.
Yeah.
I take a breath. Do you want to say anything while I pause?
Well, okay, I'll let you take a breather. Even though, please note that you being on a roll is blessing the whole planet through an immense amount of Syntropy. Also, it just reminded me of something that I've seen and felt in visions and meditations, and it just, again, it's another layer of confirmation of when I first started this podcast. My intention was to make my journey and my stories and the people I connect with illuminate others into a place of believing in themselves, a place of empowerment, a place of actually going from a realm that looks like this to a realm that's like this. And it feels like actually it really is very special to be human. And the more that the podcast has grown, the more that it's impacted individual lives all over the planet. And I get to see through my little back end logistic stuff of all of the countries and the amount of people that are listening. And what I was shown, I think it was a meditation I was in, was that if somebody listens to the podcast and then it changes their experience just by a couple of degrees, where they're actually more empowered, or they share more love, or they're more giving throughout that day, that has to, by the law of nature, always return to its place of origin of where that inspiration, the first seed, came from. And so what I found since the podcast launched, I haven't made, I don't think, a single dollar from the podcast. Like in 70 episodes, it's not the thing that is like what pays my rent. However, it comes from such a deep place of love and devotion, with the intention and the impact that it's actually changing lives for the better. I haven't once worried about money since I started the podcast. And I feel like even if someone is in Japan and they've had a moment where they've been impacted for the better because of something that I created from a deep place of heart, I could be in Los Angeles at the coffee shop and all of a sudden someone pays it forward and pays to my order. And that's directly linked with somebody in Japan that is saying, thank you, Blue. Thank you for this moment. And all of a sudden here I am. And it doesn't make logical sense because, like you said, it's like the wormhole from Japan to Los Angeles, but it is connected to almost like the flower of life that connects all of us. It has to come back to its place of origin. So once understanding that, just on like an intellectual level, but in the default of who I am, giving has become the new currency for me. It just is a part and a way of life. And since then, I've realized I'm really living in a sense of prosperity where I feel fulfilled. I feel loved. I have a deeply nourishing relationship. I have friends that care about me. I'm surrounded. I have food in my fridge. Like, I'm not a millionaire, but I feel like a millionaire, with the truest frequency of prosperity. So for me now, really genuinely receiving the benefits of this syntropy, it's become my mission, and my life's work in the Gene Keys is the number one Gene Key, which is the shadow of entropy. So I'm also curious, how does, I guess this is a little bit of like a personal question, but how does Syntropy roll in with the Gene Key of beauty? Because beauty is the city, and then the gift is freshness, and then entropy is the shadow state. How would you see that Syntropy flows in with that specific combination?
Yeah, well, in this very simple teaching called the Pearl, it's about how we embody prosperity, right? And so we are a holographic representation of the universe. That's what a human being is. Everything is actually a holographic representation of the universe. Everything is, encoded, as above, so below, that saying. And so in our body, that creative power is represented, anyway, the way I understand it, is represented by the spine, our spine. And our spine is like the power column of, it's like the divine tuning fork upon, that kind of connects us to heaven and earth. And it's this tree of life, and it's where our power is, and it's where our kind of flow is, and so issues in the spine are often to do with like, connected with money and connected with our power, and, are we living out our true vocation in life? Are we being of service? And I'm not saying all issues, but some they can be. Anyway, so the spine is that kind of, that first Gene Key of beauty, if you like, that kind of, the power of creativity, right? And then the spine sits in the belly, and the belly is so the spine is like the sword, and then the belly is like the grail, the chalice. And that's the feminine, and the belly is our ability to listen, to take in, to receive. The sword, the spine gives, it creates. The belly receives, it gives birth. It listens, it connects, it takes in, it nourishes, it digests. And so those two, those areas in our body are kind of deeply connected, and trauma is almost always found somewhere within the two. Deep trauma is usually lodged in the belly, in the solar plexus, or somewhere down there, and then it's kind of transferred into the spine. I say this as many years as a body worker who specialized on working in that area on the belly, and I learned this. And my hands became very adept at finding these deep traumas that were kind of lodged in us in childhood. Anyway, then the thing that connects the two is the breath, our breath. And the breath is the kind of secret. The breath is the link that links everything together. So the deeper we breathe, the more prosperous we are. But again, we come back to that first question of trauma, because we have to release the traumas of our life in order to start to breathe more deeply again. And that's why we have to listen to the challenges that come into our life, whether they're financial, whether they're relationship, whatever they are, and transform ourselves, let ourselves be transformed by those challenges. So meet them head on creatively, meet them with a flexible spine, not with a stiff kind of defensive kind of closed belly. So we have to learn to open to life. We have to learn to open to criticism sometimes, and we have to learn to stand up for ourselves sometimes with the spine, and we have to learn to listen and hear things, and self-awareness and all these things. And then we learn to breathe. And this is the whole process of learning to prosper. We have to prosper inside ourselves, and we prosper through our breath. I have this wonderful Latin state. You went to classical education, didn't you? It's spiro ergo prospero. I love it. I coined it. It means I breathe, therefore I prosper. And it's the foundation of prosperity. If you breathe, you are prospering. If you're alive, there's a part of life prospering somewhere. Even if you're like curled up on the floor in a misery, there's still a little part of life alive, trying to prosper through you. A little ember that just needs some. Come on, let's get it going. Come on, let's give a bit away. And then it slowly grows, and that ember becomes, the love in you starts to wake up, and that's the spiritual journey, of course. And then we give more away, and then we give more away, and more comes, and we give more away, and more comes, and it comes from the strangest ways. That's why I was coming back to like money by mistake, and it's not that it just sort of appears randomly, but it often doesn't come in the way that you expect it to come. It comes in a sort of curved way, and because life works like that. Life is more mysterious, and I just remember, when, like you, a bit like your story, when I was in my kind of 20s, I got kind of involved in the blue-green algae kind of. There's a bit of a revolution where everyone was having blue-green algae and stuff, and it was this beautiful powder, and it was very pure, and it was very cleansing for the body, and so I decided to kind of just market it a bit, and because I loved it, I was drinking it and stuff, and so I thought I'm just going to start selling it. Anyway, I started having like these blue-green algae like milkshake parties where I invited people around. And I got and I just loved the stuff. It was just a really great product, and I kind of forgot to sell it. It's like I wasn't very good salesman. I forgot about all that. But then one day a woman turned up on my door with an envelope full of £50 notes, and she said, "You've won this." And there's £1,000 in £50 notes, and I'd won it because someone had entered me into the blue-green algae's, salesperson competition or something, and I was like, oh my goodness, because I was really lucky because I'd forgotten to kind of do the sales thing because I was enjoying myself too much with talking to people. Anyway, it's a silly story, but it's like you in the Pearl teachings, one of the things I've learned from it is there are different ways. There are algorithms embedded in each of us that kind of bring our prosperity to us. And depending on our destiny, our dharma, we will earn a lot of money or a little amount of money, right? So, but life is always perfect, right? So the algorithm is perfect. So if you really get down to the depths of yourself, the foundation of prosperity is actually simplicity. Right, so you may have, because we do, as in Gene Keys we have these sequences, we have these profiles. So you can, I'll mention this so that anyone watching this or listening to this, you can go to genekeys.com, you can hit free profile, you can put in your birth data, and you can get a very rich looking profile that has a lot of information in it. And one of the components is prosperity. And it will tell you prosper best in this situation. And it will give you a lot of information called this pearl sequence. And in the middle of that pearl sequence is a little sphere called the pearl. And in there is one of 6 lines. There's a little activation. They're like, what does your prosperity look like? For you, truly fulfilled, what does your prosperity look like? And the first line is simplicity. So if you have a first line pearl, then the algorithm for you is you're never going to need that much, because you are always going to be happier without that much. And in fact, if you were given a lot, you might get stressed. You'd be like, I don't know what to do. You'd be like, I can't. I want the simple life. I want to just live on the earth. My prosperity is in my garden, or it's with my dog, or it's with my wife. It's like, I don't need anything more. And if you got any more, you wouldn't know what to do with it. So that's one. Then line 2 is recognition. So your prosperity might be love, another person, like and recognition by, another soul who totally loves you, who totally gets you, or lots of people that get you. It's different from like celebrity, and not talking about, it's like true soul recognition, like really fulfilling relationships. That might be your prosperity. In which case, also, you might attract some money, because you need the money to travel around to meet all these lovely people, but you're not going to need a fortune. And then line 3 is celebration, right? So if your algorithm is celebration, then you're going to need quite a lot of money, because you're going to have parties, you're going to share it round, you might need a Porsche, because you're here to celebrate life, but you don't want to just stack up Porsches. You want to like take people for a ride in the Porsche, and maybe help inspire others. So there are people who are here to celebrate material prosperity, if that's the algorithm. That's why it's tricky to go after one of these things, and it might not be your algorithm, right? The 4th one is charity. That happens to be mine, right? So the moment you get money, you just want to give it away because you want to see the look on someone's face when you give it away to someone who really needs it. So in my business, I give a significant amount of my revenue to grassroots organizations like refugee people who I know. I don't just give it to like some big nebulous thing. I give it to people I know. So I know the impact it has. I hear, like we gave money this last, I think we gave about £8,000. It's quite a lot of money to a Ugandan civil rights person who I happen to know, who's the most amazing man. And he wrote to me and he said, your money saved 14 women's lives in the last, 6 months. And I was like, oh my God, that is charity. Like, no, but it's not, it's almost selfish. So I can't kind of claim I'm charitable. It's like, my heart does it. So if you have that algorithm, it means quite a lot of money will come to you, probably, because it depends on how hungry you are to give, and your sphere of influence. So, and then if you're a line 5, there's only 6. If you're a line 5, then you are a leader. You're here to be given power. So that's slightly different, because if you're one of those, you'll be put in a position where there's probably a lot of money available to you, but it may not be yours, but it's available to you, and you could take a lot for yourself. Or if you're a line 5, your algorithm truly is to use that money to help others, in practical ways, to actually reinvest it in different places so that it will really have an impact, and that will be felt around the world and felt in different places. So that's that's another different kind of algorithm of success. And then the final one, line 6, is just called nature. And it's sort of the odd one out, because it's about transcending money altogether. And so you could never predict what that algorithm will do. It's someone that's sort of here to help bring an end to money. And therefore they might live very simply, but they also might be a kind of captain of industry who's got an incredible revolutionary idea that they want to implement in order to kind of bring back this gift economy. So you might take someone like an amazing man like Muhammad Yunus, who's won the Nobel Peace Prize several years ago for creating microfinance. That helped so many women all across the African continent by little tiny loans. And then he himself didn't really make much money out of it because he didn't want to. And he lived very simply, still does, I believe. And but he was looking at the system level. He was looking how, so anyway, I share those, and you can look online and see, well, which one have I got? What's my algorithm? And it'll tell you kind of when you engage your heart in Syntropy and you find your true vocation and you live that question, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole, that algorithm will kind of engage inside you, and it will deliver you exactly what you need for fulfillment. And that fulfillment will match your lifestyle. So the amount of money will match the lifestyle that you need, because we're not all designed to be millionaires, just some of us. And that's how you see Syntropy creates balance through all the ecosystems. There are certain systems that kind of have to be maintained by, that flourish at different levels in hierarchical ways. But everything's interrelated, and the same in with us humans. So anyway, I don't know, I'm still going on, but I hope I'm being inspirational in some way. I'll pause.
I mean, I feel like this conversation is like the deepest, like freshest breath for me. Like, I'm fascinated by
I don't know what's got
everything that is
into me
coming out of your
today. I really don't know, Blue.
Well, thank the Lord. That's
I don't normally feel like this.
This is perfect. I'm literally just like, everything that I think I know around prosperity, even just like any remaining pieces of just like holding or like that tension or that time, I can feel it with your words literally leaving my body. And I'm thinking like, oh, can't wait to live the rest of my life and just give as much as possible. Like through your words, I genuinely am being activated into this place. And then while you were sharing about the different lines, specifically with the pearl,
It's yours, do you know?
I pulled up my chart and I've got like my chart looking next to it while you're sharing all the lines. So I'm like in real time, not only being an interviewer of the podcast, but I'm also a massive student, just like breaking down my chart right now.
And what's your pearl line?
So the light work at the top is 1.4, and then it moves down into the pearl. It's 33.6.
So you're a 6 line there, which is the one I was saying at the end. You can never quite predict what that algorithm will bring, but it's going to have a vast impact, throughout. I always think of Jesus saying, consider the lilies in the field. It's like one of his famous sermons, consider the lilies. I always remember Monty Python saying that as well. Consider the lilies. Why is he talking about the flowers? Consider the lilies. And he says they don't toil or spin. They don't work. Basically, he's saying that the lilies don't go to work. What he's saying is that nature has a self-balancing, self-flourishing built-in mechanism. And so if you relax really deeply inside yourself, everything takes care of itself. That's what he's really saying. Anyway, my reading of that sermon. And so that's the 6th line. It's like, if you really relax, then you become the kind of lily in the field. And all kinds of miracles could happen around you. And you could revolutionize the whole way in which money works and energy flows through the way you live your life.
It reminds me of something that I keep telling myself, because I'm in partnership with somebody that is like super productive. Like, he's up and then he's at CrossFit and then he's going to go do this and he's building a business and it works for him. Like, it really, like, the results are massive. And simultaneously, like, because I'm living with him all the time, I'm constantly looking in the mirror reflection of like, maybe I should be doing this, maybe I should be like, and what the saying that just keeps coming to me is, the grass is growing even when you're not sending your awareness to it. And it just allows my being to soften and recognize, and like, we're all on our own algorithm. And what I've noticed, the more I've softened, the more straight up miracles, like you shared the story, about the £1,000 and £50 notes coming to your door, and you won this competition that you didn't even know you entered into. And I really love that story, because our mind can never fathom or comprehend how these things are going to happen. But the deeper our breathing, the softer our body, and the more we keep asking the question, how can I be best used of service today? And just be in that narrative, I really feel like it starts to create a default of living in a very magical reality. And the best thing about this conversation is when we have context for what does it play beyond just the logical mind, but into the feeling, this is accessible to anybody.
Well, we do live in a magical universe. We're talking about wormholes, wormholes to grace. I mean, the pearl is based in physics. It's just, it's like where I become the physicist. And I'm not a physicist, but I kind of know rudiments of physics. And so I just look at physics and I go, well, that's where the answers actually are. They haven't found all the answers yet, but it's kind of interesting that these different, areas are all, it's understanding of the mechanics of the universe. And we don't yet, we know that's like scientists out there trying to figure it out. And because you can't see, there are veils that you can't see beyond. When you start getting into wormholes, when you start getting into quantum entanglement theory, you're not going to resolve these things with logic. The logic itself is self-defeating. So you've got to go through paradox and somehow open up to, like, I guess what the mystics call the field of grace, or we call them wormholes. And so what lies on the other side of a black hole? Where does that information travel? But you can be sure that it links to another universe or another dimension that's connected to our dimension, but we can't yet see it because we haven't evolved to be able to see fully that interconnectivity, because we as humans have not yet fully evolved to know our interconnectivity. We're just kind of setting off. We're a young teenager, we're just realizing that we may all be interconnected. The internet is helping us, our technology is helping us see that. But, our next spiritual stage, a big leap in consciousness will be to realize that we are a single organism that's diversified and flowered into, fluoresced into so many different possibilities, but actually it's one organism interconnected. So if you help one person over here, you're helping people over there, and everything is interconnected. And it's why love really does supply all the answers.
If you're listening to this podcast and you're not already jumping out of your skin wanting to go and give, you're not paying attention because you're describing it in such an eloquent manner, but yet with such simple, grounded language. For me, it's like fireworks just going off in my neural network of my brain. That's just so simple. And there's a phrase, it's so simple but it's not easy sometimes, because that's essentially looping back full circle to the trauma that is accumulated over generations of our relationship with giving and with prosperity. And so it's simple and not always easy, because it's a deconstruction of an identity that we've based a narrative around for so long that gets to be deconstructed.
That's so true. It's so true. So for many people listening to this, that question, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole, may actually be a terrifying question to ask, because it will involve the deconstruction of an identity, exactly as you said, because if you've built up something that isn't, a whole world that isn't founded on that question, then that world that you've built up may have to kind of drop away over time. But what will be left is this flower, underneath it all. So you may have to go through a period of figuring out, how do I live? How do I start my life again? It's never too late to start your life again based on that question. And if you don't remember anything, that you don't have to go out and give right now at all. It's like, but I would say, ask yourself that question deeply every day. How can I be of the greatest service to the whole? You do not need to find the answer. You only have to ask the question. Life will supply the answer. just have the courage to go on asking the question and contemplate it, even though it may hurt, because you may go, God, well, I'm doing that over there and that's damaging the environment, or I'm doing that and it's like that's causing that's not really working, and or I'm not making enough money, so I can't fulfill my dreams. And or whatever your state is, you need to go back to the source question, because if there's lack around you, you haven't asked that question deeply enough. You really haven't. You're coming from lack, and that question does not come from lack. It's like it's the beginning of creation. It's that first gene key you talked about. It's the beginning. It begins there. How can I be of the greatest service to the whole? That's what that very first of 64 gene keys asks. I want to create. I want to be of service. How can I be of service? And every single human being and every single atom of creation is encoded with that. Everything. How can I be of service to the whole? Every insect, every ant, every tiger, everything out there. Even though you kind of might go, well, the tiger's going to kill that thing. That's not really of service. But of course it's of service to the whole. It's killing that thing so that there aren't too many of those things, so that they don't eat too many of that, so that doesn't over proliferate. So do you see what I mean? Everything is interconnected. So it's kind of its instinct is leading it to be of service to the whole. And we have deep instincts and deep intuition, and your intuition will help you. It will guide you. That's the other thing I would say, like, listen, to the quietness of, in the night when you're like alone, and you're alone with that question, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? And you're like sitting in the star field of cosmos, and you're going, this is my question. I'm a child of the cosmos. How can I be of the greatest service? And then listen to the little quiet childlike intuition inside you. And it will say, well, you do like working with children, or you really, when you were young, you always wanted to write books, or, that intuition will just come up at a certain point. And it will say, follow me, and you can just take the first step and, little gentle steps towards it. And that will be your creative journey, following that question. And the question will lead you to deeper and deeper vistas until you really start, like you and me, lucky as we are, we start to flourish. And then that flourishing is something we only want to share, and we know that, and at the same time, we can really enjoy it as well. So we it's not about giving it all away. It's also about celebrating. Celebration's also part of life. We're here to laugh. We're here to share. We're here to, explore and experiment. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, so exciting. I love what's coming through you right now. This is it's just perfect. And I cannot wait to go back over this podcast and take some notes, and just to really be a student of everything that you've shared and unpack it. They're so rich, so prosperous.
I think I'm done, actually.
Well, we're all benefiting. I want to hear a little bit more about, I know more, but you've got like a call to action here. There is something that's actually present as an offering, that there's an opportunity for people to really unpack this conversation in their own individual lives, and to be guided on this journey into the gene keys, into the pearl sequence, and into your prosperity. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about this offering that you have that's present, or that's coming up, and some details of how people can actually have a call to action.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I in the last 18 months, Gene Keys has specialized in online retreats. And we have taken about 10,000 people around the world through lots of different online retreats. And our retreats are big and long. So our typical online, the one I'm about to do launches in November, is 4 months long. And so I need to kind of describe what that involves. It doesn't mean you're kind of like sitting meditating for 4 months. it's a process of contemplation that particularly asks that question that I've been talking about, that goes deeper and deeper in layers over 4 months, and it goes on in the background of your life. That's how our retreats work. So you get I mean, the Pearl teaching there's an online program that we've developed, a self-study program. It's beautiful, it's really beautifully laid out. It's really simple. It doesn't demand a huge amount of your time online. It kind of just takes you. There's also a book. There's an ebook or a written book you can buy, but the ebook's included in the course. And then it takes you layer by layer into your Pearl sequence. So I mean, they're really completely unique, our retreats, because the software that we've developed, it personalizes the retreat to your profile. So your profile, your retreat is only your retreat. Once you've kind of booked your place, your retreat is based around your Pearl sequence. So you get the keynotes and the audios and that relate to you, that help you unpack these questions and help you look into, well, what is my true vocation and how do I fit in the world best? My culture, how do I fit? Am I an entrepreneur? Am I a kind of network type person? Am I a natural born leader? Am I, what layer and level? Am I a partnership person? Am I a small team? All these questions you get to really look into, and your profile, your prosperity, your Pearl profile shows you the algorithms of your prosperity. There's several of them. And also your brand, the branding. How do you express your highest, your inner essence as your personality expression, whether through your voice, through your words, through your clothes, through your intent. How do I express, and what's the sphere of, because there are different ways to express yourself, right? So the Pearl begins to it asks these questions. It asks you to really look into the gene keys that relate to you. Anyway, so it's an incredible journey. It has meditations woven into it. It's laid out in steps. Every week there's a theme. There's live Q&A with me and my retreat co-hosts, Tamayo Lawson and Elijah Parker, two amazing beings. And there's community call week each month, which is where the global community who are doing the retreat, who are doing this program, come together in chat rooms and meet each other in groups of 3 or 4 and connect over the themes that they're working on. That's amazing, because you get to meet 3 or 4 strangers who are doing exactly the same as you, but they live in a completely different culture, and they're probably in a completely different circumstance to you. And so but their breakthroughs are almost identical to yours. Their timing might be a bit different, but what you see is each other's breakthroughs, as you kind of, because these online retreats, that's all they're about. They're about helping us make breakthroughs that then become changes in our life for the better. So whether you're rich, whether you're poor, it doesn't matter. It's like whatever level, the Pearl helps you to bring balance into your life. So it helps you simplify things. It helps you towards incredible lucidity. The mind, when it's clear and that intuition is lined up and that spine is kind of strong and the belly is soft and the breath is deep, that's what all the Pearl is about. So it's not just a thing you do online. It's actually a deep embodied practice. So these meditations take you deep. They actually help you unlock some of the trauma. And so it's a journey, a journey over 4 months in company with a global group. It's really powerful. And we curate these retreats so well. I have a professional team. We've dialed it, we are all here to be of service to the retreat participants, including me. And so we do everything we can to make it a kind of valuable, easy to navigate, fulfilling experience. And I could not do it without an amazing team, about like 20, 25 of us who really look after everyone. And so it's an incredible experience. You're coming on it, aren't you? I'm going to make sure you're in there.
I'll be there.
Anyway, so if it sounds, you can look into it. You can come and check out our sort of information pages on my website, and you can have a look, and because it tells you the features and how it works, and gives you, and you can, there are questions and things, FAQs that you can ask, and what if this, and you adapt the teaching to your life, right? So whatever happens in the 4 months while we're doing it, life is also happening. So it might be that something comes up in your life and you have to adapt and shift, and that's okay. We've created the program so that they adapt to your lifestyle. They don't make any demands on you. So some people kind of skim across the surface, and others go deep, 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 and others kind of go in and out and come back. And once you've subscribed, you have the self-study program for the rest of your life. So you can carry on going deeper and deeper into the information, even long after the retreat, because it's all still there, and all the meditations and everything's all still there. And it unravels in this sequence. So you can just carry on going back over it and back into it. And it's incredibly rich. It's taken years to create. I mean, it's like, I recommend it. Our online retreats are phenomenal. So yeah, please, and any of your, anyone listening to this, you can, if you book through our lovely Blue here, we'll give you a 10% discount. The course, if you've not purchased the online Pearl sequence, some of you may have done, so you may have been doing it online, then it's $350 for the full 4 months, and then so you'll get 10% discount off that, and also if you book through Blue's link, she'll earn a nice bit of that for herself. So I would love for you to do that. To help the Syntropy move towards her, and just check it out. Go and have a look at the Pearl through our links. And anything you want to add there?
I mean, $350 for a 4-month retreat is unheard of, and that just feels really good in my system, because it casts a really wide net, and it just allows anybody, really, wherever they're at in their financial demographic, it's just allowing people to be able to access this. And then ultimately it's planting a very potent seed to be able to start calling in more prosperity on all levels, and really understanding and having context. Because when we have context for the energy of who we are, ultimately it's not telling us anything that outside of ourselves that needs to be like created. It's recognizing we've had it in us since the moment we were born. But when we have context for the river water, we can know how to direct our energy, and therefore have much more concentrated return ultimately. So this is 4 months of carving out context of the essence of the magic of who you've always been, at an incredibly affordable price. And then you can come join me and Richard, because Richard's going to be there live and chatting.
I'll be there. I'll be in the, I'm always in them. I'm in the community call. You might get me in one of your rooms, if someone does, because I just always drop in. People are like terrified. So I'm like, no, I'm not that bad. I'm just a normal person.
I've talked about this with you on the beginning podcast. Like, after being deep student for many years with the Gene Keys, like, it's so easy to put you on a pedestal and like, he must be some like Gandalf like figure that stands on top of a mountain with like a huge beard and a wooden staff, and he's like,
well, I'm a bit of a Gandalf, but he's a bit of a clown, isn't he? He falls over all the time, and he's it's the same.
You're an approachable Gandalf. You got your own flair.
I know. And you're right. It is a ridiculously affordable price for what we offer. It's like, it's really, I can assure you the value is there, I always, Syntropy is something that we imbue into our business. And one of those commitments is to keep our prices really affordable. We know we could charge 5 times that and it would still be of that, it still match the value. But I don't want to I want this to be available to anyone. And I should say that there are bursaries for people who really can't afford that. So you could go in through the, if you come to my website, and you'll see that there's a bursary link, where you can come in and apply, and then you'll get met by a lovely team who will kind of process your request if you really, really are strapped. So And we really try, bend over backwards to try and kind of accommodate people. Obviously can't for everyone, but yeah, much as we can.
Thank you. Thank you for this offering and this service to the planet. Thank you on behalf of the planet and all of the inhabitants for the work that you do in the world and for the wisdom that you so generously share, and also understanding the energetics behind this entropy and where your wisdom is born from. Just allows and it breathes permission with every syllable. So grateful for you to be here. For anybody that is interested to look at your gene key chart, www.genekeys.com, but because of my accent, people think I say gene keys with a J. It's gene like genetics, and then keys like unlocking a lock.com, and then you'll go to free profile and put in your information and you can pull up your chart. And then if they would like to access the information for the Pearl retreat, there'll be a link in the video if you're watching through YouTube. Also, if you're listening to this through audio, then there will be a link in the show notes where you can get specifically 10% off through my affiliate code. And in addition to that, if they go to the website, Richard, whereabouts in the website do you know is the Pearl information of the retreats? Is it of course, it's right at the top.
It's on the homepage. There's a you know, it's right there. You'll see it. Pearl Retreat launches beginning of November. Registration closes October 31st. So you can book by then. Yeah, okay. It'll be a few thousand. So it'll be a big group, and it'll be wonderful. It'll be amazing.
Whole global family coming together and rewriting our relationship with prosperity. We a tribe you're going to want to be a part of. Come on. Yeah. So it's from November 2021 all the way to March 2022. It is 4 months long. Deep dive into your prosperity and learning to have context for the energetics of who you've always been, so that you can be of service in a much bigger way and live in a life of true prosperity. What a blessing. So Richard, thank you so much. So grateful for this conversation.
Such a pleasure.
And to all of you beautiful bluebirds, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for your curious heart leading you to this podcast and allowing yourself to be illuminated through the wisdom that you shared through people's life's work, the devotion to support you to really truly live a life of service and full alignment. So no matter where you are, whatever you're doing, may you feel loved and heard and held and supported. And until next time, bless. Thank you so much.